moon. These are common to both countries, I think.
And next question goes to Jeff. Jeff, as a leading nation in space exploration, of course, U.S. has been going way ahead of the others. So what do the American astronomers and scientists think about Chinese space program and lunar missions?
Well, obviously, there's a lot of interest in this. People are following this, and there is curiosity. Now, for the public, there has been less interest. For example, this morning, the launch was carried on many of the stations here, like CNN, some of the major networks. However, before today, there was not a whole lot written or said about it, at least in public. But I'm sure from a NASA perspective, they are keeping an eye on it, and it is something that they are following, because obviously there are a lot of changes right now in the American space program, and that's heading in a whole different direction, actually, as of this week.
And we know in the U.S. Congress there has been discussions about the changed direction of space development programs. Obama has changed gears from the moon to the Mars and asteroids. What is the debate? What is the discussions about that?
Well, it's funny you mention that. There were major changes. Actually, just the last couple of days, Congress approved a budget for NASA, $19 billion a year. As part of that, it's causing a huge shift in the direction of the space agency. It's causing a lot of questions here in America. For example, they are canceling the Constellation program. That was a development of some new rockets that were going to take us, like what's going on with China, back to the moon. Well, that has now been canceled because it was over budget and they were having problems with that program. Instead, they're developing a heavy lift rocket. That's what they're pushing right now to take us to Mars and beyond in the future. A bunch of other changes in the direction of NASA. They are pushing commercialization of spaceflight, particularly for lower Earth orbit, which will go to the International Space Station. Now, as part of that, as part of this new budget, they also want to expand the life of the station from 2015 to 2020. And perhaps most significantly, as of this morning, thousands of job cuts were announced at NASA as part of the cancellation or the upcoming cancellation of the Space Shuttle program. As you may know, the program is basically at the end of its life. There were 2 more launches planned, one next month in November, another one in February. Well, as of this new budget, they have announced there will be a 3rd and final Space Shuttle flight. That'll be next June with the U.S. Atlantis. And after that, after 30 years, the Space Shuttle program will come to an end. And as I said, at that point, we begin shifting in an entirely different direction for the U.S. space program.
Yes, indeed, the U.S. has been shifting directions. And Europe has been always willing to cooperate with other parties in terms of space exploration. It has been cooperating with Russia, with the United States. What about China? What is the potential for European Space Agency to cooperate with China, Carl?
Well, we already have a cooperation, and we have had a cooperation on the Chinese Double Star mission, where ESA was invited to put instrument on these 2 Chinese satellites in order to study the magnetosphere, which is the Sun-Earth relationship. So that is one element which has been very successful as such. Then we also have cooperation areas in the area of Earth observation and scientific uses of Earth observation. We have a project called Dragon with the Ministry of Science and Technology, which is producing very, very good scientific results by pooling Chinese scientists and European scientists, getting them to work together on data from Chinese missions and European missions. It is a fabulous, we have got some really fabulous results on this. And also now the European Space Agency is also involved a little bit in the Chang'e-2 mission. We're providing some support, some ground support to the Chinese Chang'e-2 mission.
There is no better example of sharing than space exploration. My final questions go to all of you. What is the possibility of these different nations and countries joining hands and cooperating in real terms about space exploration? Terence, what about Japan? What is Japan's standpoint on that?
Well, experts here say that because the space development program, the space exploration is going to intensify, and with China's lunar program, it's going to intensify in the Asian region as well. So there's bound to be a need for cooperation in the future once all the red tapes are cleared. But China and Japan had a joint sort of information sharing in 2006 of the experiments of nematode in 2006. So a corporation like that, partially or a full corporation, might be in the near future. That's what the experts here in Japan are saying.
And Japan, China, India, rival or partner?
Well, there certainly is a case to be made for joint activity in space exploration, but I personally don't think that's happening anytime soon, for a number of reasons. Number one, among all the fields that China and India need to cooperate on, science and technology is not the most important one. But even if science and technology were considered an important area of confidence building measures or cooperation, I don't think space exploration will be on the top of that list. I think more important areas include climate change, research, renewable energy, and that sort of thing. Plus, don't forget, the Chinese space program is a military program, whereas in India it's a civilian program, and there is likely to be a problem of working cultures here.
I have to remind you, there is always a civilian side in the Chinese military program too. But Jeff, what do you think of the possibility of the United States cooperating with China on space exploration, although you are a leading nation in that area?
Yeah, well, you know, there might be a little bit of both. There might be a little bit of cooperation and a little bit of competition as well, which competition can be a good thing. In fact, that's probably part of the reason that we're continuing to push out into space. But keep in mind, the focus right now for America is primarily on the changes taking place within NASA. As I said, the main focus is the International Space Station. For the next 5 years or so, maybe 6 or 7 years, a lot of effort will be put into that, working with other countries to develop the space station and use it now that it's basically at full operating capacity. And then, as I said, the U.S. is pushing out beyond Earth orbit. We've been to the moon. We've decided now, according to this new budget from Congress, that we've been to the moon and we're ready for new challenges. And that's why this new heavy lift program will take us, hopefully, in the next 10, 20 years to Mars, asteroids, and beyond. So the future is out there, and we're heading in that direction.
Yes, indeed. And Carl, what about you? What do you think the picture is holding out for us?
Well, first of all, as a representative from ESA, I must say that international cooperation comes very natural to us, as we are the result of international cooperation. We are a European regional space agency, so therefore perhaps we try to always envisage our programs in such a way that we can have cooperation. I also agree with what Jeff said about there is also always an element of competition and cooperation, but that is good because that stimulates cooperation. But of course, I mean, if there will be major future exploration initiatives, I think they will be carried out through international cooperation.
Okay, let's hope we have all benign competition and cooperation. Thank you all. Thank you, Carl, Jeff, Jabin, and Terence. And those are the journalists and scientists from all the world sharing their thoughts about space exploration and cooperation. Well, John, you think it is a good picture that we will have a nice cooperation in the field of space flights in the future?
I think it's a very promising possibility, and certainly one that we should be pursuing energetically right now. It is far easier to establish some form of cooperation before we get too deeply entrenched in building hardware on a competitive basis.
What do you think are those breakthrough points that different nations can work on together?
Well, you can think of it in terms of the hardware required for an ambitious mission, such as a mission to the moon or a mission to Mars. There are so many different pieces of hardware that can be built by different people.
Using their own competitive edge, you mean?
Using their own special areas of expertise and putting these puzzle pieces together. In the world of aviation, it's not unusual to look at an aircraft, such as a Boeing aircraft or an Airbus aircraft, and find a list of 40 or 50 contractors in 20 or 30 different countries who contributes essential components.
But what is holding us back from cooperating even in a more comprehensive way and earnest way? What is holding us back?
I think it's the traditional fear of spreading technology around to people who don't have it. I think it's a mild form and a somewhat excusable form of paranoia.
So those who have advantages don't want to share their technology because they are in fear that they might be stolen from.
I call this Khrushchev's law. Nikita Khrushchev said that collaboration between two nations
You're
in
talking
space
about former
exploration.
Soviet Union leader.
Yes. Khrushchev said that when two nations consider collaborating in space, the nation which has a technical advantage over the other will be reluctant to share their advantage. And the nation that does not have that advantage will be reluctant to show its weakness.
Well, that sounds like an act
help.
for psychology. What's wrong with it?
Well, what's wrong from Khrushchev's conclusion, of course, was that collaboration was impossible. But what we have in the aviation industry is a clear proof of the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yes, indeed, we have Boeing assembly lines all over the world. Now, China have assembly plants of Boeing and Airbus. So, for aviation, it works. For space travel,
how many European-made components are there aboard of Boeing aircraft, and vice versa? You know that there's a lot of involvement in the sense of building something which is so large, so complex, and so complicated that it would be almost impossible for a single company to do it. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about areas of exploration that are so complex, so complicated, and so expensive, so overwhelming in their scope that it's beyond the ability of any one country to afford. So if there is a human interest in the exploration of Mars, fine, let's explore it as humans.
I think that's why Obama has been saying that we need cooperation in space, because America now alone cannot afford to do all the things by itself, although it's a leading power.
Every American president since Eisenhower has at least paid lip service to this principle. And it was President Reagan, of all people, who invited China to participate in the International Space Station. China refused.
So about China's willingness to participate in space exploration, I want to have your perspective, Dr. Peng, about China's willingness to participate in international cooperation. China has been on board on the International Space Station, as John had mentioned, but China is developing its own space labs. What is the intent of China's space program in the long term, over the long haul?
Actually, I know I was told that China has applied to join the ISS International Space Station program, but the U.S. refused to have China as a partner in ISS program. But now I think in the lunar exploration program we have a lot of communication and exchange with partners from other countries. I personally think it's possible, and also it's very promising for China to join the international exploration of the whole solar system. Maybe 5 or 10 years after continuous success of China lunar exploration program, we will have capabilities to take payloads from other countries to perform the moon and the deep space exploration. It will gradually break through the barrier in the international cooperation in space program. I think the condition will get